Hello there. Welcome back to our Ilcarnate, what will likely be the final video. We are going to form the Ilcarnate this time. It's been a lot of work, but we've got there. We're going to immediately attack this little nation here. They are a secessionist revolt who are a vassal of this nation here, who in turn is allied to this nation. We're going to eat a lot of land that will get us, I think, within 10 locations of being able to form the Ilkhanate. We're also integrating a vassal who themselves has 18 locations. So those two things together should let us form the Ilkhanate. I don't think there's a reason for us to waste time, so let's just do it. We've already got a CB because I fabricated one beforehand, so we'll just declare war. We'll call up the levies, and this war should just be a relatively clean sweep. We outnumber the entire alliance just on our own. We're going to see about annexing this nation here for those extra few locations we need. This land here is also part of the Ilkhanate, so we'll see if we can grab it as well. There are unfortunately quite a lot of forts that we'll need to get through, which will likely delay our sieging by quite a bit, but there's nothing we can really do about that, other than just roll with it. The enemy are calling up mercenaries, but thanks to our good old cavalry, it doesn't look like they're going to be much of a problem. Will we ever see the back of the mercenary swarms? A part of me feels like no. Paradox seems very much inclined to keep it around, for better or worse. This tiny successionist nation here seems to have quite a lot of money, so it looks like they're just going to continuously call up mercs. Luckily, just sitting on their capital will put a stop to that. At the very least, the AI always seems to summon mercs in their capital, so usually just occupying the capital is enough to stop them. We've actually managed to capitulate the nation we're at war with. I wasn't really intending to. It just sort of happened. So we could just make peace right now, but I do want to grab the few extra locations we can that are within the Ilkhanate from this green nation here, so we do need to siege them down. It actually might be too expensive for us to take all of the Ilcarnate land these guys have. It looks like it's going to be. So we'll likely have to cut back a little bit. Actually, looking at it, it looks fine. This land isn't actually in the Ilkhanate, so we should be all good. Alright, this nation's been sieged down. We'll just full annex them. No reason not to. I suppose it might upset people antagonism-wise, but do we even care? Probably not. Then we'll take the little bit extra land we need. Put us very close to forming the Ilkhanate. There, we just need 8 locations now. We're about to integrate our vassal who has 18 locations, so that will be done. We're going to have a bit of a Shiite revolt, but when do we not? As you can see here, the minus 500 from the various succession wars is of course playing a part. Luckily, it looks like it's being counteracted from winning those succession wars. I still don't like it though, but we shouldn't have a problem crushing this revolt. Oh, and actually taking that little bit of territory made us the majority Mongolian nation in the world. Finally, this is actually wonderful. I don't recall there being this many Mongolians. I guess, is this territory literally filled with Mongols? I guess it is, yes. These are all Mongol core territories. So we can actually start controlling our cultural opinion of nations. It would have been really nice to have this at, say, the start of the game, or later on, instead of the end of the game. Who would I increase cultural relationship with primarily? It'd be great to do it with the lower Egyptians, but of course, they don't really exist, and I don't really want to release my Egyptian land. I guess once we conquer the Mamluks, we could release a tiny nation here, say, and use them to increase relations. We've cored the rest of our territory. Actually, no, this location here isn't cored, but it's not majority Egyptian. It might be, though. So we could release a guy here and use him to increase our cultural opinion. So I think I'll save my cultural action for that. Alright, that's that civil war over. We should be able to now form the Ilkhanate. Yep. One of the problems is there's still a few people in the Ilkhanate we need to destroy. There's a guy I've essentially kept around. You may remember him from the start of the game. I've kept him around just out of fear that destroying him might have dissolved the Ilkhanate. He is literally nothing though. He has no soldiers. He has 1 regiment of regulars, but they don't even have any men. So we'll just kill him pretty cleanly. I might just no CB him. Another thing we need to do is move our capital back into the Ilkhanate. This isn't a big deal. We have a lot of stability and money, so we'll just pick a location. Doesn't necessarily matter where. We'll simply move our capital into the Ilkhanate and then potentially, or likely, just move it straight out again. And as I said, I think we'll just no CB that tiny nation. Although let's let our capital move first, so we can form the Ilkhanate instantly, just in case it ends up not exactly working correctly, right? It would be rather inconvenient if something was, say, broken. Let's also release a vassal with the Egyptian primary culture. The Mamluks have 440,000 people, so we do need to make sure that we release someone with more. I'm not sure if we can though. The provinces they still hold are very populated, so I'm not sure it's worth even trying. It might be better to attack them first and then think about releasing somebody. There, our capital has been moved. We just need to kill that tiny nation now. As discussed, I think we'll just no-CB them. No reason to delay. They should just die instantly because they don't have an army. We'll just step on their army. They immediately cease to exist. We are now officially the head of the Ilcarnate. Unfortunately, being head of the Ilcarnate doesn't really do anything for us. It'd be cool if there were some interactions like the ability to integrate vassals or core land rapidly within the Ilcarnate. That would make sense to me. But no, that's not an option. We will now form the Ilcarnate. Before we do, let's actually talk about the Ilcarnate, because I actually think the Ilcarnate is one of the worst formables in the game. Let me explain my justification. Number one, it only comes with 5 advancements. These advancements are quite good. 10% proximity speed, a 10% to research, and a minus 5% to urban buildings costs. The Descendants of Genghis Khan, which gives us a whopping 20% to our light cavalry power, and then an extra government reform. You'll notice I ignored this one because it only provides a paltry 0.1 prestige, and a little bonus to our great power score. Not something we really care about. The problem is it takes a lot to form the Ilkhanate. You need to stay part of the Ilkhanate organization, you need to be the leader of the organization, and you need to take vast swathes of land. The reason why I say it's one of the worst is because it's also a 4th tier formable. And if we compare it to other 4th tier formables, for example, let's compare it to Delhi, someone else we could form because we're a Mongolian cultured nation. They come with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 advancements. And they're a lot easier to form, only requiring 233 locations. And you might say, but Delhi should be a good and powerful nation, right? With more than the Ilkhanate, even though they're a tier below them. And I'll say, sure, but what about Circassia here? Circassia is a tier 1 formable, which requires 15 locations to form, and yet has 6 advancements. These advancements aren't amazing, obviously. Tribal election here does nothing because it only provides tribal cohesion, and Paradox didn't bother to make it so it provides other forms of government power, so it literally does nothing. Circassian mercenaries is pretty good. It decreases the cost of mercenaries by an extra 10%. Skilled horsemen reduces the cost of light cavalry by 10% and increases their power by 5. Founding towns decreases the cost of forming megalopolises, cities and towns by 5%, which is always nice, and an extra 10% to fort defense. Grand Princedom gives that 10% extra morale, and religious coexistence gives 0.5 to both heretic and heathen tolerance. Pretty great for a tier 1 formable, I'd say. Circassia is definitely a great nation to form because you don't actually need to change your culture, you just need to own enough locations in the region and move your capital there. So it's a great nation to just form as literally anyone. In fact, I do it quite a bit in my personal playthroughs, where I play in the region, just form Circassia if I can, and then just form anyone else. But when I compare it to the Ilcarnate comes up kind of short because there's so much work involved forming it and the rewards aren't even that great. The worst part is let's say we form the Ilkhanate and we wanted to go on and form the Mongolian Empire. We can't because they're both the same tier. And the Mongolian Empire, of course, comes with a lot more advancements, and a lot of them are kind of the same as the Ilkharnate's advancements. For example, they get the Ghostly Horse of the Plain for an extra 20% light cavalry power. They get improved Yan, which also gives 10% proximity speed, which also gives light infantry reinforcement cost minus 20. And on top of that, they get 25% speed of integration, minus 15% antagonism received, minus 20% to attrition, minus 5% to separatism. They get a lot more. Of course, it's a lot more work to form the Mongolian Empire. But to me, the Ilkhanate is a successor state to the Mongolian Empire, so really it should be a step between them, not the end of the road. Maybe the Mongolian Empire should just be a 5th tier formable, since it's kind of like Rome of the steppe, right? But it does feel strange that the Ilkhanate offers so little despite the work in forming it, especially when we compare it to other formables. I do just feel like the Ilkhanate isn't that great. I think if we look at Hindustan here, it gets a big buff to cultural capacity. I think the Ilkhanate needs something like that, because most of their buffs here aren't really to do with ruling. The only one that really helps with ruling territory is this slight buff to proximity speed. They gain nothing when it comes to managing all of the cultures within their territory that they've conquered. But either way, it's not like the Mughals are much better, but they are much easier to form. The Mughals, for example, only take 266 locations versus the Ilkhanate's 614, right? But let's form them anyway. We gain a new name. The Ilkhanate disbands, so it might as well not existed in the first place. And the real kicker for me is forming the Ilcarnate, as we've just done, doesn't even make you an empire. When you're part of the Ilkhanate, you can't form or become an empire because of this restriction here. So really, you should become an empire when you form the Ilkhanate, right? Since it blocks you becoming an empire while you're a member, it doesn't really make sense that after going through the effort of forming it, it doesn't propel you to an empire. But yes, my recommendation is not to form the Ilkhanate. It's just a lot of work for not really any reward. Cool name though. And I guess we get this nice yellow color, but we don't gain any new unique reforms or privileges. It just feels, to be fair, like this is how it is in EU5. Like most nations are rather empty outside of advancements. Of course, we get no events either, which I didn't really expect to gain any, but still, I would have liked to receive something, at least being propelled to an empire. Out of everyone that should be an empire, the Ilkhanate is kind of up there, right? Now I'm actually going to take a few loans, just because as you can imagine, moving our capital has damaged our economy again. We're going to move back to Cairo. It didn't actually cost as much as I thought it would be, so we can pay things off pretty easily. The real problem is getting the prestige up to actually become an empire is very hard. We need 70 prestige, which means we're very much relying on events, and we don't have any threatening rivals. We are actually the second ranked nation in the world behind Wu. Not really surprising, but either way, let's make sure to grab those unique advancements at least. That 0.10 prestige, I guess, will be helpful when it comes to trying to become an empire. It won't give us passive gain of prestige, but at the very least it will delay the loss of prestige that we'll experience due to prestige decay. So we've kind of completed my goal for this campaign, but there's a few things I want to do. I'd like to take Constantinople off the Turks, and I'd like to fully destroy the Mamluks. We can do that whenever. We just need to fabricate a CB. With the Ottomans, it's going to be a more protracted war at least. We'll need to fight them. We'll probably fight them to capitulation. The smart thing to do now would actually be to hand out a lot of the territory I have that, of course, isn't my cores. Now that I've formed the Ilkhanate, I don't actually need to control all of this land directly. But that is coward speak. I'd rather not hand out my land now that it's mine. We've grabbed the foreign culture law. I've actually been waiting for this. Let's grab the allow foreign rituals so we can increase our cultural capacity further. Problem is, increasing our tolerance of places, of course, costs prestige, something I don't really want to spend at this point, right? I want to save my prestige in order to become an empire. One thing we are going to keep an eye out for is members of our family coming of age, because we can just marry them off to whomever, which will net us a little bit of prestige. Ooh, that's interesting. The coalition attacked us. I don't really know why. I guess they've got the Ottomans in. And the Mamluks. Mamluks aren't really anything at this point, though, but I'm not sure why they attacked us. We're a lot stronger than them. I feel like they're attacking me just so they can delay my ability to attack the Mamluks and the Ottomans by forcing me to have a truce with them. How very annoying. We'll of course fight to a white peace as fast as we can. I guess we might actually be able to gain some prestige in this war too. We could humiliate them, potentially. It would only net us 5 prestige though, unfortunately. I'm not even sure it's worth fighting that long. And because we can't piece out the other members of the coalition, it's not like we can go around grabbing prestige from them. Very sad. Alright, I think we'll call the war there. I was thinking, you know, oh, I can get a bunch of prestige from battles and stuff. But despite killing, I don't know, nearly, well, more than 150,000 Turks, the prestige gods were feeling a little stingy, and so we're only handing out like 0.01 prestige per battle, so I guess we'll just call it there. I'll have to just be satisfied with killing so many Turks and not achieving my prestige-based desires. One thing of note though is that we did gain another local governor from research. The question is where to put it. Let's take a look at our proximity spread. It's not too bad at the moment because I've been able to get our local governors down in Baghdad and Aleppo, but where should we place the third one? We could place it over in Hormuz. I don't feel like Hormuz is a very good location to spread control from though, because, you know, can only connect to this one location via sea. So I'd prefer to pick somewhere where it could actually spread control wide. I don't particularly care about money per se. I care about spreading my control. So spreading our control anywhere would be what I desire. Let's actually throw it up in Georgia maybe. The lands up here aren't that, well, I suppose they're not too bad actually. The Georgian lands, at least there's a few locations earning over 50 ducats. I suppose we'll build it up in Georgia then. We're going to need to wait for the truce to expire now before we can attack the Mamluks. It's only 5 years though, so it shouldn't be a big deal. We'll also begin fabricating a CB on the Ottomans too. As I mentioned, I do want to take Constantinople. One thing of note is the rival warlord has once again appeared. I do wish that he would stop appearing. It's definitely annoying. There's the rival warlord, rearing his ugly head as usual. He has a slightly different flag than he usually does. Either way, we'll try and crush him. Unfortunately, he's probably blown my local governors up again because he's cut me off. We do still control the places that have our local governors, but I think because they're cut off from the capital, they'll likely just explode, which is, as always, an annoyance. But there's nothing, literally nothing I can do to stop it. There goes the rival warlord, screaming back into the pit. Will he come again? Almost definitely. Alright, our truces have expired with the Mamluks and the Ottomans. We'll attack both. I think at once. There's no real reason to delay. Let's first declare on, I guess, the Ottomans. They're the bigger threat. Declare war on them, raise the boys, and now we'll turn around and declare war on the Mamluks as well. Our goal is, of course, to annex the Mamluks. For the Ottomans, I'd really like to take Constantinople off them. It doesn't really have much value to us as a location, just because our empire isn't really centered around it. I suppose we could potentially turn it into our capital and become something resembling a Roman horde, but that's a little bit outside the, shall we say, goals of this campaign. Something for the future. Alright, the Mamluks are done. We're going to full annex them. They do have a few vassals, so we'll steal those vassals for ourselves, I guess. Doesn't really matter at this point. It's definitely nice to see the Mamluks fully destroyed and gone from the map. It's kind of rare to see them gone. Because they're so large and they expand so far, it's hard for them to actually finally die. But we've managed to do it. Now we just need to deal with the Ottomans. We've already killed 150,000 of them. Just need to kill some more. We'll see if we can't get them to capitulate, so we don't need to bother sieging down Constantinople itself. There we go. The Ottomans have capitulated. How many dead? Nearly 500,000 on their side, all things considered. We only lost around 100,000, and that's probably from just attrition from sieging their forts mostly. So let's grab Constantinople. What else should we grab? I guess we'll eat into more of their land. In reality, it probably makes the most sense to carve to Constantinople like that. So I think we'll do just that. Take some money from them. There we go. The city of the world's desire is now under Mongolian control. You never thought you'd live to see it. It's something we shouldn't see. What I'd really like to do now is downgrade Constantinople. You know, emulate Hulagu Khan's sacking of Baghdad with our own sacking of the city of the world's desire in Constantinople. Unfortunately, you cannot downgrade a location if there is separatism in a province. So not only do we need to core it, we also need to accept the pops living in it before we can downgrade it. And honestly, that's kind of a lot of work. But even so, let's have a look. How long would it take to core? Only around 11 years, not too long. Are Turks the majority? Turks are the majority here as well. So it wouldn't be too hard to accept them, because we already have a lot of Turkish pops. In fact, Turks are now the third largest group within our nation. It does feel odd though that we can't just sack locations. We are Mongols after all. Why do we have to accept land before we can sack it? Kind of defeats the point of sacking a location if I have to first make them like me and culturally integrate them first. But well, as I discussed before, now that we've destroyed the Mamluks, let's release a country that will be of lower Egyptian culture. We'll then use them to increase the cultural opinion of lower Egyptian with us, which will massively reduce our cultural costs. I don't think I'm ever going to get enough prestige to become an empire. It's just not really ticking up even when my ruler's leading in battles. So I think we're just going to give up on that and instead we'll accept Turkish culture. In fact, we'll go all the way and integrate them. We still have a little capacity left. I guess we'll accept these Levant people. We should gain a bunch of cores now from all the Turkish provinces, now becoming full cores. Although I don't think we've actually integrated many of these Turkish provinces, so perhaps not. I think we're going to chill out for now and just wait for Constantinople to be cored and then we'll destroy it. Some of you may shed a tear, but that's a price I'm willing to pay. One of the problems I am having, or a bug, is sometimes when nations revolt, they don't actually revolt. Instead, they just become independent, which is, as you can imagine, very annoying. Because then we have a truce with them, despite them breaking off from us, and then we have to wait and fabricate a CB and attack them normally. It's a big hassle. You can see there's little nations just scattered around inside my territory that have just broken off from me without my consent or my ability to stop them. I don't know why it happens, I just know I hate it. There goes our Ilkhanate. We now have a new one. He's not very good, and of course he's pushed our legitimacy or horde unity down, so we'll likely experience the good old succession crisis. But well, it's not like we can do anything to avoid it, so we'll just let it happen. I mean, if it does happen, I guess it could be avoided potentially. We'd need to get up to 60. Nope, there we go. As I was saying that, it begins. Aha, there's our rival warlord. He has a new flag now, because with the Ilcarnate. He did manage to take Constantinople, which is annoying. We'll need to win the war as fast as possible so we can go back to coring it. Aha, there we go. This should lead to the... Oh, well, actually, My Horde unity wasn't as high as I thought it was. I thought we were at 70. That's really unfortunate, because now the succession war doesn't end. Oh well, I guess we'll just have to win another round. Finally, there's the second revolt defeated and the end of the civil war, or at least it should be. Any day now? Yep, there we go. Long live the Ilkhan. Our stability is really high now. Now, how close are we to coring Constantinople? We were very close before the revolt happened. Yep, it should only take like 9 months minimum, provided there's no Greek revolt. The Greeks are becoming a little uppity. But to be fair, Constantinople is majority Turkish now, not Greek. So those wily Greeks wouldn't have an effect. One thing that did happen though is that our local governors all exploded again. So we'll rebuild them, as is our lot in life. Oh, it actually looks like Greek has become the majority in Constantinople. Let's just quickly accept Greek culture then, if they're even available to be accepted. Are they not available? Or are they close to the top? Where are my Greeks? There they are. No, there's not enough Greeks for us to accept them. I guess what we should do then in this case is we'll have one of our cabinet ministers assimilate Byzantium to Turkish culture. It's not a big difference between Turks and Greeks, so we can hopefully bridge the gap. Oh, I didn't even notice, but we gained enough prestige to become an empire. I guess it's because I took this diplomatic approach in one of the events that gave us 0.5 prestige. Let's do it. We are now the Great Ilkhan Horde. I also came to another horrible realization. I feel cheated. I'm not even sure if I should show it to you. Do you remember that extra government reform we get for becoming the Ilkhanate? Apparently we can't get it because we're an army-based country. What's even the point of becoming the Ilcarnate if I don't get the extra government reform that's promised to me? How am I supposed to annex and absorb all this land without my government reform? It's horrible, absolutely disgusting. Almost disgusting as how long it's taking the Turks to become the majority in Constantinople. Since you've got an extra government seat from becoming an empire, I guess I'll throw him down in Constantinople to increase control, which will in turn increase how fast they assimilate. Alright, finally, the Turks are the majority, not sure they should be, and now, much like Hulagu Khan, I will consign Constantinople to the flames. Reduce it to a rural location. It's going to take a day to do, so let's watch. This is Constantinople now, and this is Constantinople post-destruction. All the people there are still there though, and in fact, I'm not sure if they're going to migrate. I think the province, I think it's fine actually though. I guess because, yeah, they didn't lose the development when they were downgraded, so even though they've been reduced to a rural settlement, they still have very high population capacity, so there's no problem with them keeping all the pops there. I guess everyone's fine. They just go to live in the wilderness that was Constantinople with no issues. If I have one complaint about being a horde, and I have more than one, but the lack of being able to actually destroy things is kind of upsetting. Like, I can't raise places to the ground. I have to core locations before I can downgrade them. And when I downgrade them, it doesn't lead to massive losses of life. Is this really what being a horde's all about? Not on my watch. I definitely think EU4 did a much better job at having horde nations be kind of crazy and destructive than EU5 does. I suppose EU5 benefits from the fact that we can actually, you know, kill pops. But I want to raise stuff. And the fact that I can't is upsetting. Alright, I think we're going to leave this campaign here. We've completed our goal of becoming the Ilkhanate. We destroyed the Mamluks. The Ottomans are still alive, but it wasn't really my goal to destroy them. I haven't really expanded as much as I wanted to do. I wanted to conquer all of Arabia as well, but I keep having this problem with nations popping out of me and declaring independence. I suppose the smart thing to do would just be sit and integrate all the land and then start expanding again, but I don't really feel a need to. What's integration map mode looking like? A lot more green, a lot more yellow. Still quite a lot of red though. But I feel like we've overcome the biggest hurdles that we experience as being a horde. In my thoughts on a horde, I feel like hordes are very dysfunctional. I really hate the rival warlord who keeps coming back even when we're not in the disaster. I think if this was fixed, it would solve most of my problems. The massive amount of rebelliousness that pops get from this rival warlord as well, I really think that should just be removed. I mean, look at this, 570. It decays at 1 a year, right? So it's never going to decay for a lot of these pops because it's so high. The whole game could pass by and the rebelliousness wouldn't have fully decayed. So I think instead of what they do currently, where if you win, they just slap another modifier on that increases happiness to reflect that, I think they should just have this be removed if you win the disaster. Because we can see here, for some reason, the positive number that's supposed to counter it decays at a faster rate. So I have more rebelliousness than I have non-rebelliousness. And this is annoying because I'm already dealing with lots of revolts as a horde, but then my pops are even more rebellious like these ones here, minus 640, because the bonus I get for defeating the disaster doesn't counter it. Like, I'm never going to be able to get down this 640 rebelliousness no matter what I do. I guess the only real option would just be to kill all these pops to remove the modifier that's affecting them. So I definitely think this needs to be fixed / improved. And I'm not sure about this whole nations popping at you thing. I'm not sure if that's a horde problem or maybe because I have too many revolts. Please fix that paradox. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, the not being able to declare war on my own vassals or not being able to declare war on other horde nations because I can't use the horde expansion CB is really odd. I mean, I guess it's fine not being able to use this CB on a horde, but surely I should have like a rival horde CB that I can use on hordes. It would make sense for hordes to be able to attack each other and rapidly annex each other's lands, because that's kind of what they do. So maybe a new CB, like Horde Rival, and it has a reduced conquest cost by like, I don't know, 25 or 50% to facilitate rapid expansion amongst the hordes against each other. There's also issues with the whole succession thing. Sometimes I lose varying degrees of horde unity and I don't know why. I'm supposed to lose 55 every succession, which should put me on 45. But I've been put down to 35, I've been put down to 25. Sometimes my ruler dies and I'm still in the high 60s and 80s. I don't know why. Maybe I just dreamed it. It doesn't feel that way though, but horde unity seems to drop far lower than it should, and sometimes it just doesn't drop at all, which is, again, very odd. I'd also appreciate more succession laws as a horde. I'd like to select youngest successor first, really, but that's a very minor thing and more of a personal preference thing than a complaint. But I think that's everything I wanted to say about hordes. If you've played a horde, let me know, and let me know if you've experienced similar issues to me. Let me just check, because I'm still getting that event in Cairo that causes people to become Hellenic. You can see it sitting at minus 190. It doesn't look like anyone's actually converted though, which is good. I wouldn't expect them to because there's no actual Romans here or members of the Roman culture group, but I keep getting that event from earlier where it triggers the Hellenic reformation in Cairo, which is very strange. But before we finish, there's one thing I'd like to do. Someone requested it, so we're going to switch to Nestorianism. This would completely break our nation because now all of our pops are now heathens. And Nestorianism is pretty bad religion, honestly. It doesn't have religious aspects. It doesn't even have the religious event that Orthodox can trigger, which I always use to get free research. There's actually nothing we can really do here other than found the Third Rome. I feel like all of the Christian religions that are based off Orthodox and use the same system should probably have all of the reforms that Orthodox has. I mean that in the sense of being able to mend the schism. The Catholic heresies are pretty good though, because they all have religious aspects and some of them have unique ones, like Hussites being able to get 10 wives and 10 husbands, and Catharism, I think it is, being able to get women to lead armies and be placed in the cabinet. Even the Bosnian religion has some unique options it can press, whereas Nestorian has literally nothing. So before we actually finish, let's have a little look at things. Mongolian hasn't really spread very much, but that's sensible as I haven't actually been converting. I don't think I've ever tried to convert Mongolian pops. For some reason, there are some Mongols over here though. Thessalonica is a majority Mongolian location. That's very odd. Not sure how or why that happened. Who brought them there? The Turks? I don't see why they would. Oh well. Religion-wise, we haven't really done much. We've just stayed Sunni most of the game. We still have a few Shiites actually roaming around. Because again, I haven't really been actively converting them. Just didn't care to. Quite a few Catholics roaming around in some of these territories though. And the world? Granada, no, it's not Granada actually. Morocco controls parts of southern Iberia. Is Portugal dead? They've been driven out of Portugal, but are they still around? No, Portugal is destroyed. They were destroyed around 100 years ago, in fact. Aragon still exists though. Eventually, we have to assume Castile will fully eat them. France actually hasn't done that well in this game. I guess they won the 100-Year War and landed in England, but for some reason maybe they just lost a coalition war. I'm not sure, because they've got a bunch of locations that are inside them that are independent. We've got Brittany, Burgundy, Artois, Bourbon. These guys are all independent. They're not vassals of the French. I'm not sure why. Naples has, as always, expanded up into Italy, but for some reason they've ignored the Pope. He still exists, though he doesn't control Rome. He's just existing next to it. The Serbians, Bulgarians, Neapolitans and Ottomans, of course, divided up Greece between themselves. I'm not actually sure if the Bulgarians have expanded. I think they've expanded a little, but it's the Serbians who've got the lion's share of Greece outside of the Ottoman territories and the territories that belong to Naples, but they usually belong to them at the start. Muscovy's done pretty well for themselves. They're actually stretching east as well. A coalition actually formed against them, and I actually got invited to it. I didn't join, obviously, because I don't really care, but look at that Slomensk. Slomensk, bros, we're so back. The bear has risen. Absolutely glorious. Central Asia is, of course, just pure chaos, as it usually is. China's been wooed, as again it usually is. Not really surprising. We're the second rank great power in the world, with Wu holding all of the spots. They have 300,000 regular soldiers. That's quite a lot. We only have 6,000, but to be fair, I didn't feel the need to expand my regulars just because my levies are so good. Why even bother? We're quite close behind them on cultural influence though, just because of how powerful Mongolian is. Japan is, of course, Japan. Better to not even look at it. Looks like the Ashikaga have actually fallen though. Have they fallen, or is this just a rename? I think it might actually just be a rename because the Ashikaga family lost power. It looks like it. Looks like they lost power pretty quickly as well. The Takeda actually took over for a bit. So the Ashikaga shogunate still exists, it's just renamed itself because it renames itself to whatever family's ruling it. Alright, I think that's everything there is to see. So for now, I think we'll leave this series here. I do have another idea for a Horde campaign. It's going to be kind of a crazy one. I think we'll start as this same nation, the last of the Borghini family in Iraq. But instead of forming the Ilkhanate and conquering the Middle East, we'll go west. Europe, you know. Maybe that's where the Borghini family can start anew after being rejected so utterly by Asia. Maybe we'll even form a much older empire. Maybe there's such a thing as a Roman horde. But either way, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.